I certainly hope that's the case. It should be the case.
What's the perspective about why it is that Benjamin Netanyahu released that video?
Because he is a yapper, because he is entitled, because he is arrogant. We're getting into the news, baby. Israel warns of possible all-out war after Hezbollah publishes video of military and civilian sites. I gotta go pee real bad. Hold on.
Conflict in the Middle East after Israel's foreign minister warns Hezbollah it would be destroyed if all-out war breaks out. Israel Katz's comments online follow Hezbollah's release of a purported 9-minute drone video that shows sensitive military locations and civilian areas in Haifa and other Israeli cities. And while tensions percolate along the northern border with Lebanon, there's a brewing diplomatic rift between the Netanyahu government and the White House. We are connecting the dots on this for you with Ben Wiedemann, back with us this hour from Beirut. Paula Hancock's is in Jerusalem, and Lauren Fox is in Washington on Capitol Hill. Let me start with you, Ben. Just describe to us the importance of this purported video shot by drones, Hezbollah says, from Lebanon over Israeli cities, including Haifa, which of course serves as a crucial gateway to the rest of the world and maybe more importantly for Israel. How does Hezbollah manage to fly a drone in such strategic locations? And is this psychological warfare that we're looking at here?
Well, Becky, I think the Israelis are also trying to figure out how it is that Hezbollah was able to fly those drones over some very sensitive military positions, military industries, the port, where we see huge oil storage facilities. They got it all. Now, for one thing, what we've been seeing from almost the beginning of the back and forth skirmishes between Hezbollah and Israel is that Hezbollah has been targeting Israeli surveillance and observation equipment all along the border. The Israelis, in fact, brought in cranes to replace the destroyed surveillance equipment, and Hezbollah took those out as well. So clearly there are holes in their ability to see what enters Israeli airspace, but above and beyond that, clearly Hezbollah has the technical capabilities to collect this sort of sensitive information well inside Israeli territory. It's about 30 kilometers from the nearest point on the Lebanese-Israeli border to Haifa. Was it a propaganda video? Well, actually, if you looked at the text in the video, there wasn't anything about attacks. It was just very sort of factual, explaining what this location is, what it served, what you're seeing. And
Bro, if your entire strategy of defending your people revolves around making their lives less safe by actively attacking every single country around you, you're cooked. Okay? You are the most cooked, because this is literally the Chinese spy balloon, right? And unlike the Chinese spy balloon, which was just a scare because it was a weather balloon that flew over U.S. airspace due to like winds and this unironically is an active and very deliberate and very targeted deterrence mechanism. It is a threat to say, don't around, you will find out. Okay? This kind of stuff genuinely is, once again, further proving to everyone, okay, further proving to everyone that has eyes to see and a brain to compute that Israel is not keeping Jews safe worldwide, and it's certainly not keeping Jews safe in Israel. Okay? It's just not. Like, obviously, when you are genuinely presenting yourself as an active threat to anyone and everyone in the region because you think big dog, the United States of America, is always going to bail your ass out, it's not going to keep working. Okay? Those other countries have nowhere else to go either. You know, you're just kind of stuck there. Be kind to your neighbors. It is insane. It's why Chihuahuas don't make it to the dog park without mom's supervision. It's just like, how are you so bad? How are you so bad at this? How are you so bad at this defense? How are you so bad at keeping your people safe? It seems behaving like a belligerent maniac is, and this is shocking, I know, shocking for some, maybe shocking for all, is not keeping your people safe at all. Like, not even a little bit. You think Trump would tighten Israel's leash if they tried to actually start a regional war? No. I don't think Trump has better foreign policy instincts than the team that Joe Biden has surrounded himself with. And Joe Biden's team, that doesn't mean Joe Biden's team is good. It's very bad. I think it's just like Trump also has demonstrated once again that he is not, like, I mean, Trump, in all of the time in his in office, in all of his time in office, like, he showed that he was not interested at all. Yo, stop being weird boo trans. Okay, yes, I did seeking derangements already. I did it yesterday. Okay, calm down. I don't know when it's gonna come up. I don't know when it's gonna come out.
It really is a message to the Israelis that, you know, don't mess with us. We not only have the ability to collect intelligence deep inside your territory on very sensitive sites, but along with that probably comes other capabilities that we've seen slowly unveiled in the last few weeks. For instance, Hezbollah in the last few months has been able to shoot down 3 Hermes 900 Israeli drones, very sophisticated drones that can fly as high as 30,000 feet. They took those out with anti-aircraft missiles. 2 weeks ago, they were able to strike, according to Hezbollah, but the video would also seem to confirm that, an Israeli Iron Dome battery. The Iron Dome is really the backbone of Israel.
There's actually a ton of northern Israeli residents pleading to the government to start another front on the war in the north. I don't blame them. They're getting terrorized day in, day out by Hezbollah without any help from their government. But obviously the solution to missile terrorism isn't more missile terrorism. A ceasefire in Gaza will go a long way, in my opinion. Yeah, it's just like Israelis unfortunately have the same exact dumbass brain rot that we have in the United States of America, which is like the best solution to gun violence is more guns attitude that Americans demonstrate at every point. It's like, oh, have I been doing this exact same thing this entire time and it has demonstrably made things worse for me? What's the solution? Changing course and maybe going in the other direction, maybe seeking like peace negotiations, like binding peace negotiations. Nah, I should keep doing the same thing more and more. Okay? Americans think the solution to gun violence is more guns. Okay? Maybe not all Americans, but enough Americans. Like, think about it. During school shooting season, which is basically the entire season in the entire year at this point, with the exception of maybe the summer, our solution, especially in the state of Florida after the Parkland shooting, what was our solution after the Parkland shooting? To launch the Pioneer program, which would give teachers who were desperate for extra funding subsidies for purchasing a firearm and learning how to use it so that we could arm the teachers with guns. That's how stupid we are here in America, and that is exactly how Israel operates with respect to its neighbors. Okay? It's literally the same energy. It is the most America-coded behavior to be like, you know what will stop the bombing campaigns coming from our northern neighbor? More bombing. Well, how did it start?
Israel.
Here's John Mersheimer on Israel's strategy of escalation dominance.
Was the big loser here. You have to understand how the Israelis think about deterrence. What the Israelis believe is that their deterrence depends on escalation dominance. In other words, as we go up the escalation ladder, I dominate. It's now very clear the Israelis no longer have escalation dominance vis-a-vis Iran or vis-a-vis Hezbollah. They cannot shut down the conflict with Hezbollah on their northern border. Really quite remarkable. The Israelis are hitting Hezbollah very hard, and Hezbollah is responding. Hezbollah has 150,000 rockets and missiles. So from a deterrence point of view, the Israelis are in real trouble. Israel.
Yeah. This is 100% correct, by the way. Like, this is the doctrine. What is it called? I think it's not even the Dahiyya doctrine. I'm talking like specifically, there's a term for it. Like, is it the Iron Wall? Is that what it's called? Like the idea that the only way that Israeli military leadership has ever, the Iron Curtain? No, not the Iron Curtain. It's something. It's the notion. No, not the Iron Dome. That's the missile defense system. No, and the Iron Curtain is Soviet. That's not. There is a different word for it. I think it's literally called the Iron Wall, where basically the idea is that the only way that Israel, like, and it doesn't. Yeah. Oh yeah. Jabotinsky. Thank you. It is the Iron Wall. The only way that Israel thinks that it has like perceived security in the region is by being literally belligerent, kind of doing the madman principle from the Nixon Kissinger era policy of being like behaving like a psychopath, the madman theory. But in like the Israeli version of it, basically. Why is your sound quality always bad lately? Always cutting out randomly? Is it? Or are you just saying that because you have some weird shit going on? I haven't heard any other chatter mention that. Everyone is saying no collectively. Okay. It is a genuinely stupid policy that, like, no matter what happens, the only way that we can have a veil of security, perceived security in Israel, is by showing everybody, if you throw a rock, we kill your family. If you throw a missile, we throw 10 missiles back. If you attack a military site, we attack your civilians. And it's always the same idiotic policy. No, that's not the Dahiyya doctrine. The Dahiyya doctrine is just an extension of that. The extension of the broader deterrence mechanism that Israel thinks is very successful. And the only reason why Israel thinks this is successful is because America has allowed it to at least come across like it's successful, because the Western world has always offered unconditional support to Israel. That's it. And Israel was able to get away with it for 76 years without anybody really paying attention. Okay. Things were obviously a lot different. Yeah. Here, Jabotinsky wrote an essay called The Iron Wall, where he described the Arabs would only stop resisting the Jewish state when they knew it was too strong and would give up on their hope of success. This, unfortunately, does not factor in the very real notion that the people on the other side have families. They are human beings. They have nowhere else to go, and they are constantly being bombed. And when you constantly bomb people, when you apply the Dahiyya doctrine, for example, which would be a subset of the Iron Wall principle that we're talking about as a part of your deterrence mechanism, you are going to create a lot of enemies. You are going to consistently create a lot of enemies. We know this concept is blowback in the United States of America. Basically, I posterized my own career with that principle when I said America deserved 9/11, very famously. Okay, that's just what it is. There is going to be blowback. When you fuck around, you are going to have a find out moment. Okay. And it's very odd, very, very odd that Israel for 76 years has like gotten so comfortable with this, because the resistance to this kind of principle has always been very ascetic. It hasn't been super successful, with some exceptions, with notable exceptions, like obviously like the Lebanese withdrawal. Darzek says, I had a talk with a family member after the relatively recent Iran situation. I said, I don't know. I don't think attacking motherfucking Iran right now is a good idea. And the family member said, well, then they'll just see us as weak and want to do it again. Actual caveman behavior. Yeah, that's like instilled, I think, in the Israeli mindset. And I think Americans have this as well. We are just fortunate to be so far removed from like our geopolitical condition, like our strategic landmass is so far removed from like the serious threat of all of the shit that we cause around the world, that it's like very difficult. Yeah, the geographic isolation that we have has been incredibly beneficial for American dominance this way. So Israel can't really get away with that because They're in the neighborhood. Okay? It's like being a Klansman in like Inglewood. Okay? The are you doing? You could be a Klansman in you know, in Mississippi somewhere, in your own neighborhood, in a white neighborhood. You can't do that. You can't wear the robe. Coming from a Muslim, classic. I don't know what that means. Yeah, you can be a Klansman in Clanty, but you can't do it. You can't diss your own ops from their own hood while simultaneously harming them too and creating more ops. That's a major problem, which is very odd. And Israel has, like, I guess, grown far too comfortable thinking like, no, we'll always get bailed out. America will bail us out. America will bail us out. And there is a limit to how much America can bail you out.
Israel's missile defense system. So even though Israeli officials like the foreign minister are talking about destroying Hezbollah is showing that it's not a foe that should be underestimated in any sense of the word. Becky?
Yeah, this is not Hamas we are speaking about here. Paula, let me bring you in here, because as we discussed with Ben what is going on that northern front, which is a clear issue for the Israelis, there is a serious rift beginning to open up now between Benjamin Netanyahu and the Biden administration. Let's have a listen to what he had to say about Secretary of State Antony Blinken yesterday.
It's inconceivable that in the past few months, the administration has been withholding weapons and ammunition to Israel. Israel, America's closest ally.
But then again, how did you want Israel to respond to the initial attack on October 7th while they've gone overboard? They did nothing wrong in their initial response. Your initial response is wrong, because you think that ultimately at the top of the hour that you can get away with saying stuff like this and that I won't retaliate in kind and serve you the 3-minute ad break. Okay? You just can't do that. You can't come in here and think that that is going to work. It's not going to work. It's not. That was not even a good bait, honestly, at this point. It's not even a good bait. It's a bad bait. They should have used the Mossad to target Hamas leadership instead of bombing Gaza for... Wait, what are you talking about? That dude wasn't being serious. That dude was trying to bait. It's a 10-10 copium. Okay, dude. Yeah, good one. Top of the hour. It's not even in the 5-minute grace period, but I'm going to serve it anyway. I'm YOLOing. Like I said, at the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break. If you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime or by getting gifted a sub. It's Juneteenth. Gift a black chatter a subscription today. Do your part in being a good white ally. Here's the 3-minute ad break now. You know what? A certain we just got handed to Israel for being the silliest. Yeah.
Fighting for its life, fighting against Iran and our other common enemies. Secretary Blinken assured me that the administration is working day and night to remove these bottlenecks. I certainly hope that's the case. It should be the case.
What's the perspective in Israel about why it is that Benjamin Netanyahu released that video yesterday very pointedly?
Because he is a yapper, because he is entitled, because he is arrogant, because he thinks he can just push back on Biden, even though Biden is constantly going, please, sir, I will do whatever you want. What is this? Even a broken clock? Bro, Haaretz is crazy. Let's see if I can archive this. Haaretz goes nuts with the paywall, especially... Here. Boom. Get Haaretz. How do I translate this page? There we go. IDF spokesman, destroying Hamas, throwing sand in the eyes of the public. Netanyahu, the IDF is not committed to this. The exchange is evidence of the continuation of the great tension between the political and military echelons regarding the continuation of the war. Yesterday, the IDF spokesman harshly attacked Netanyahu's close associate Yaakov Bardogo, who claimed the chief of staff supports the continued rule of Hamas in the Gaza Strip, and stated that this is a complete lie intended to harm the chief of staff and the IDF. IDF spokesman Daniel Hagari said today that the matter of destroying Hamas, eliminating Hamas, is simply throwing sand in the eyes of the public. He clarified that the way to weaken Hamas is to establish a new government in the Gaza Strip, and the political echelon is responsible for that. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said in response to the political security cabinet headed by me, defined as one of the goals of the war, the destruction of the military and governmental capabilities of Hamas. The IDF is, of course, committed to this. In an interview on Channel 13, Hagari said that Hamas is an idea. It is a party. It is rooted in the hearts of the people. Whoever thinks we can eliminate Hamas is wrong. It's the Muslim Brotherhood. It has been in the area for many, many years. To the question of what can be done about it, the IDF spokesman replied, grow something else, someone to replace him, something that will make the population know that someone else distributes the food, that someone else does the public service. Bro, this is like the only time I've ever heard this Dumbo motherfucker make sense. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of shocking that Brigadier Rear Admiral General, who has the largest ears I've ever seen in my entire life, is actually hearing the Palestinian population's demands, I think, and recognizing that this is, not a tenable situation. Maybe he heard me all the way from the United States of America and, I got to him. I mean, he's 100% right about this. Who is this someone? The political echelon will decide. In order to reach a situation where you really want to weaken Hamas, this is the way. Every now and then, this is one of my favorite tropes, I guess, of Israeli society, is that every now and again, one of the most bloodthirsty monsters will come out and just say the most correct thing. Okay, this is like a classic, Shin Bet head says, consistently attacking the West Bank and doing clan violence, like Jewish clan style violence in the West Bank is only going to harm Israeli national security. Or like when Ehud Barak was like, yeah, if I was Palestinian, I would be a terrorist 100%. There's always a moment like that. Okay, there's always a moment like that, and this is Daniel Hagari's moment. The only people that never have moments like that is Benjamin Netanyahu and the Itamar Ben-Gvirs. This is correct. This is perfectly valid. This is a perfectly valid criticism to make because it's true. Hagari noted that the IDF is close, and then, of course, he follows it up by saying, is close to defeating the Rafah Brigade, which was part of October 7 and part of Hamas's oxygen pipeline. At the same time, he clarified that if we don't bring something else to Gaza, at the end of the day, we will accept Hamas. Regarding the issues of the abductees, he emphasized, it will be impossible to return all abductees in military operations. We will have to reach a situation where the abductees are returned in another way. The role of the army is to create possible conditions. The role of the political echelon is to make these decisions. After the response from Netanyahu's office, the IDF spokesman published another statement in which he sought to clarify that the army is committed to achieving the goals of the war as defined by the cabinet, has been working this way throughout the war, day and night, and will continue to do so. Yeah, and then they yelled at him, so he had to come out with a follow-up to be like, no, you don't understand. We're still doing whatever the cabinet tells us. Okay? How is a Zionist-led or collaborative government going to bring a liberation and the end to an apartheid? Listen, man, it's just pressure. There's not much else you can do. Okay. I'm not saying that magically American leadership is going to personally turn around one day and be like, you know what? We were wrong. Palestinians are human beings. Okay. But there's only so much stress any kind of foundation can take. U.S. canceled a meeting with Israel. Yeah, that's nothing. That's because Benjamin Netanyahu said this. So they had to do something optically to make it seem like they're punishing Israel. It's bullshit. I mean, look at the saying to think murdering 40K doesn't make that job harder, but the basic idea is obviously true. He also went on Channel 14 later to basically apologize and say, no, guys, the war is still good and we need military pressure. So don't jump the praises. Yeah, no, I'm not. I don't think the Israelis are underestimating Hezbollah, and to be honest, most want to avoid it. Do you think a ceasefire with Hamas has any chance of stopping the escalation up north? I don't think that Israelis are underestimating. I think Israelis are underestimating Hezbollah. I think the appetite for going into Lebanon in Israel is pretty big. I think that there is a lot of internal pressure from the public, especially in northern Israel, but across the board, and especially in the settler side of things, that they do definitely want to go into southern Lebanon. I think that you are wrong to think that the Israeli population doesn't want to go in and repeat the mistakes. I think part of that is that Israel, due to the Iron Dome and due to the unimaginable amount of funding it's gotten from the Western world, and due to the political security that it's gotten, due to the political capital that the United States expends at the behest of Israel regularly, has created a neat little bubble where the population doesn't see the genuine negative consequences, or hasn't ever met the genuine negative consequences of waging this kind of war, both physically, because like the maximum amount of like fear that they feel is when they like safely go into a bomb shelter. It's become a part of like normal process in Israel, a normal way of life in Israel. Like they'll bring it up and talk about how scary it is, but even then it feels like it's like there is no real threat there. Okay, if there was a real and genuine threat, they would not be this adamant about opening up new fronts of war without thinking about their own personal, without thinking about like what the personal consequences might look like for them, because they've never actually experienced it. October 7 was one of the first moments where Israeli society genuinely felt the veil of security shatter, okay? And their reaction was unhinged, just like America. So I don't think they truly understand the consequences. The anti-Zionist Israelis in this chat see it. They know exactly what will inevitably happen. They probably see the pressure that is being applied to Israeli society. They're in here. They're seeing a much different type of coverage on Israel than the type of media coverage you hear inside of Israel. Right? I don't know. I don't know where this goes, I guess. I just don't really understand how Israel can continue going along with this, especially when the world has soured on Israel dramatically. It is very different. Since 2021, things have changed. Like the course, the trajectory for Israel has changed dramatically once all these like NGOs started calling Israel an apartheid state, which it was, and you know, it was no longer like seen as a major faux pas to just like correctly call out Israel as an apartheid state. And then post October 7, the activities basically, you know, got a lot of people to recognize that Israel is very brutal. I don't think that they understand that they're becoming pariahs to the rest of the world. It is definitely going to shake up Israeli society. I'm Israeli myself, so I'm just sharing the perspective while I'm seeing around me. While there's a general consensus, sorry, Gravy Johns, you got clapped by Fossabot because your message was too long, but I'm going to read it. I'm Israeli myself, so I'm just sharing the perspective I'm seeing around me. While there's a general consensus that the war in Gaza is justified, the prospect of a war in Lebanon is not something any of us want. My circles are mostly military-age men. The second Lebanon war was ... not good. Kind of futile fight that got us no one except for losing soldiers. Even the bloodthirsty ones want to avoid the toll it would take to fight on the northern front. Do we have any polling on this? I want to see. That would be very smart, to be fair. Doesn't the pariah status get swept away as anti-Semitism? Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's one very successful way to just like... one very successful way to be like, no, the rest of the world doesn't understand. The rest of the world doesn't understand. Like, because it's so embedded into Zionism. It's so embedded into the national consciousness that like Israel has to exist. Okay. Israel has to exist in the way that it does as a Jewish ethno-state. And obviously when there are, you know, millions of people living there, the indigenous population living there, and are not going away, you have to maintain an apartheid. You have to be this violent because you're in a bad neighborhood, right? And that people simply don't get it because they must be anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitism certainly ties into the national consciousness and the nation building inside of Israel. So I think that it is one way that I think people can just like cast aside all of the criticisms, but it is creating even more of an isolated population. We've seen this since October 7, and it's gotten only worse. What do I mean by this? I think that I think that like people genuinely can't comprehend inside of Israel like how so many people have turned sour on Israel. And there's only two ways out of this. You either start recognizing that like maybe the actions of the Israeli military, maybe the actions of the Israeli state is creating valid disgust for those who can see, who are in the Western world, or it's all just anti-Semitism and you further isolate yourself and you think, no, it must be anti-Semitism. Majority of the Jewish Israelis support full force attack against Hezbollah, says poll. Regarding Gaza, most Jewish Israelis prefer a civil administration by Palestinian elements and Arab states with Israel responsible for security. 62% of Jewish Israelis support an attack on Hezbollah in Lebanon with full force. This is from June 17th. Holy shit. There you go. 62% of Jewish Israelis support an attack on Hezbollah in Lebanon with full force. Now, that's much lower as far as percentages go than like continuing the brutal occupation in Gaza, the brutal siege in Gaza. But I guess it's down from 10%. 71% of Israelis in favor of operation against, according to this Maariv poll, 71% in February were in favor of an operation against Lebanon. So I guess the attitude is shifting, which is interesting. If there is one thing I have seen throughout history, though, throughout Israeli history, okay, throughout Israeli history, they do respond to force. It is like, it legitimately, like I've never seen a nation actually see the consequences and then turn around and go, you know what? Actually, maybe we shouldn't do this. No, some people respond to force negatively. Israel responds to force from the Palestinian population with no restraint because they think the Palestinian population is servile. They think the Palestinian population are, subhuman. It's the same arrogance and the same supremacist attitudes that are so solidified in Israeli collective consciousness that they think they're all children, they're all elderly, they're all disabled. We can do whatever we want. They're weak, so we can double down on the force. But when it came down to Iran, for example, when there was a little back and forth, with a little bit of brinksmanship against Iran, they had a very different attitude against opening up a new front with Iran. And I think this is going on with Hezbollah as well. If you look at the population percentages, like the appetite that the population has in going into Lebanon versus continuing the bombing campaign in Gaza. The bombing campaign in Gaza has gotten like 80% support from the Jewish population of Israel, whereas the Jewish population of Israel, it's only 62%, which is still incredibly high, and it's still crazy for the record. But it is interesting to note that that difference. The more powerful the enemy is in the eyes of Israel, the higher likelihood that the enemy has to actually strike them internally, the less likely they are to go and f it up, I guess. Even then though, still a pretty high percentage. Last poll I saw showed 46% of the Jewish population support a wide-scale offensive. This shit varies a lot depending on how the question is framed and whether or not non-Jews are included. Yeah, for sure. Fascism is about subjugation of an outgroup, not about fighting per se. Israel doesn't want a fair fight. Fascism is colonialism turned inwards. Yeah. We'll watch the Zeteo documentary. A couple people have sent me some stuff. Mehdi Hassan sent me the Zeteo documentary, at least the trailer for it. It's also kind of how you because Israel only has one way to respond to everything. This is how they responded every single time. Like the world will be like, hey, you need to dial it back, and they respond by just hitting those who have no power. That's why every single time Israel finds itself in the crosshairs of like any kind of scrutiny, they respond by doubling down on the most marginalized populations. They have one speed, boys. That's it. Anyway, let's go back to this analysis and we'll continue talking.
Speaking there about
I gotta pee again.
Conversation with Antony Blinken.
And speaking in English, Becky, so it's very clear that the audience is American, the audience is international. This is not for domestic considerations. Now, it's no secret that there are differences between the Israeli leader and the US President Joe Biden. They've certainly had their differences over recent months, not least because the US has been pushing Israel to be more careful in Gaza, to push for this ceasefire, something that the Israeli Prime Minister has not openly said that he will agree to, this ceasefire hostage deal, and also pushing for a Palestinian state, something that the Israeli Prime Minister has said he does not support. So the differences between these two sides are very pronounced. It is surprising, though, that he would come out and do this so publicly, washing dirty laundry in public, if you like. And it did have quite a surprised response from the Biden administration as well. Listen to this.
We, as you know, are continuing to review one shipment that President Biden has talked about with regard to 2,000-pound bombs because of our concerns about their use in a densely populated area. Like Rafah, that remains under review, but everything else is moving as it normally would move.
We generally do not know what he's talking about. We just don't.
And there's no Israeli official at this point that's going on the record to speak about this. No one appears to want to have their name next to this video. Becky?
You see what I mean? Lauren, let me bring you in at this point, because all of this happening just ahead of Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to Washington in July to address Congress. We have seen some pushback already, with some lawmakers saying that they will boycott that. Have a listen to Senator Elizabeth Warren earlier.
Do you plan to attend Prime Minister Netanyahu's address to Congress?
No. Look, we need a ceasefire. We need to get those hostages back. We need humanitarian relief. And we need to be giving both parties a big shove toward getting to the negotiating table and working out a peaceful solution.
Should the president make clear that he should not address Congress, Netanyahu?
Look, that's up to the president, but I'm not going.
Well, Joe Biden facing some quite serious backlash within his own party on this, isn't it? And he's...
The Biden admin should just turn around and say, "Fuck you, Netanyahu. We're pulling all your military aid under review. The U.S. has that power to flex. The Biden admin just won't use it." Yes. The U.S. has had that power since day one, though. You understand? So that's not a thing.
Really looking at a dilemma ahead of November's election. Explain, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, this is still a month away, and I think it's clear that there are many...
I thought we were boycotting Disney, Hassan. No. I mean, with the exception of last night, I've been boycotting Disney, but no, that's not on the BDS list.
Many progressive Democrats who plan to boycott Netanyahu's speech when he comes to address Congress in July. But this is really coming from two different places. You know, on the one hand, there is...
What would happen if the U.S. stopped all export of weapons to Israel? Super simple. Israel immediately turns around and follows whatever the America wants to set as far as the conditions of like a ceasefire with all of the neighboring regions. If America has that interest, Israel will absolutely follow. That's the reason, like, BDS movements work on our allies. Sanctions work on allies. Sanctions don't work on enemies in the same way. Sanctions towards our enemies is simply cruelty. Sanctions towards our allies, on the other hand, will get the job done, because our allies require our unlimited support, our unconditional support. They have built their society around our unconditional support, which is precisely the reason why sanctions don't work against Cuba, but sanctions absolutely do work, or did work against, apartheid South Africa. Sorry, Warger fucking wrote something and fucked me up. Probably not. So if you're working on that video, don't.
Just disagreement with Netanyahu's handling of this conflict in the Middle East. On the other, there's also this feeling from some liberals that you are putting Joe Biden in this position where someone who has been critical of the president is coming and addressing Congress just months before the November election. So it's really sort of the policy.
Doesn't Israel have their own weapons manufacturing or create one? Bro, Israel has run out of munitions multiple times throughout their bombing campaign in Gaza. I don't think you guys understand the amount of bombing required, like the amount of back and forth The amount of munitions required for Ukraine to defend itself is unimaginably high. The amount of munitions required for Israel to continue bombing Gaza is unimaginably high. It's so much so that, like, I don't even think America can keep it up, okay? You're forgetting something very important here, which is that, like, there is a finite amount of bombs. There's a finite amount of munitions. There's a finite amount of manufacturing that we can engage in. Like, no, without our support, they would have run out of bullets by like the first week. Disney isn't on the BDS list, but it is a pressure target. Talking about Disney pride to thousands of people definitely runs counter to praxis / point of pressure targets. Just letting you know. First of all, I didn't even know that Disney was on a pressure target list for the BDS. Secondly, as you know, I literally am pro-Israel, and therefore I did it for that reason, because I'm actually secretly pro-Israel. And not even secretly, openly pro-Israel. And I think that, you know, although I've been an advocate for BDS for the past 10 years, I've actually been secretly doing as much as I can to consume as many of the products as possible and promote those products. I'm a traitor to the left. The only radical action this chatter has done against Disney is yell at you. Yes, I have been found out. I don't believe you. Say you love Sabra hummus now. Bro, gun to my head, I would not say that. Has not... And that isn't even BDS shit. Like, I just personally find Sabra hummus to be such a gross thing, like an affront to God in general. It's just like, ugh. Yeah, I'm a Zionist and I like playing on hard mode, just like my LGBT and racial equality stances, because I want a harder fight. Yes, I know the Fatah activist, psychopathic freak lord dipshit right here. We'll talk about this in a second. Yeah, Amazon is a pressure target on the BDS list as well, by the way. I know that one, for the record. They're currently inside of the pressure target. Tell us where falafel comes from then. Israel, of course. That's right. Israel invented falafel. Everybody knows this. I love Israel. All right, let's continue. The only ethical company is Kick, technically.
Politics abroad and also the politics at home that they don't agree with. You have to keep in mind this is happening in the context in which the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, has put a series of really tough votes on the floor that have fractured Democrats in some cases. Now, there's really typically just a small number of Democrats that vote with Republicans on some of those proposals, but it has been one of the most difficult conflicts for the leader, the Democratic leader in the House, Hakeem Jeffries, to manage within his conference. And so, you know, I expect that there is going to be a large number of Democrats boycotting Netanyahu's address to Congress. We should note that about a decade ago when he came to Capitol Hill, there were also dozens of Democrats who boycotted the speech. So that's not precisely new, but I think the numbers might be larger. It's also possible that they have press conferences or some kind of other counter programming when he comes to speak. So it would go beyond just not showing up for the speech. It would be sort of more of a tacit opposition as well.
In our politics lead, Ozempic and Wegovy.
Sanders calls on Ozempic maker to lower price of drug. Inconceivable. Bernie Sanders slams Netanyahu's approach to the war against Hamas. Jesus Christ. What an insane sequence, dude. Holy f***. This is 414,000 likes.